and courthouse steps of small-town South Carolina to the late-night studio where the mics never sleep. This is where decisions, rumors, and real stories collide. You're tuned in to the Pot Stirrer Podcast with Jazzy Jeff. Real talk, local issues, no fluff.
I feel like after tonight's show, we're going to have a big old drink of liquor. Because this whole show I had planned out a couple of days ago has taken an unusual turn this afternoon with more news and information. Good evening, everyone. Welcome into the podcast of the Pot Stirrer. I'm your host, Jazzy Jeff Bright. And it is an honor to be back here with you on Monday. First of all, I want to say happy belated Mother's Day to all of the mothers from yesterday. Had a great Mother's Day from my own mom. And if you are celebrating or with your wife or whoever else, I hope that you had a great Mother's Day. Well, coming up a little bit later on, we're going to shuffle an interview. We are going to have the interview tonight with Barry Sanders, who is the chairman of the Oconee County Republican Party. Got some great information in this interview, and I think it's going to be a wealth of knowledge for a lot of folks around here. We're going to talk a little bit about the breakdown of things happening in the OCRP. But I want to start off with a little commentary, and I want to share something with you. Let me put a hypothetical situation in front of you real quickly. Let's say that you knew somebody that was on disability, that was 100% allegedly disabled, and they were getting government disability. And the wife also was on disability. So, hypothetical now. Not saying this is happening, but hypothetical. What would you say if that person you found out went and bought a $100,000 truck, but was on disability? What would you say if the wife did a GoFundMe for a sewing machine? 100% disabled. How you feel about that? Disabled. 100%. Your tax dollars. Buying a truck and a GoFundMe for a sewing machine. Don't you think about that tonight? Because that's a hypothetical situation that may be going on here in Oconee County. All right. Well, let's get started. I want everybody's attention, please. I'm bringing something up on your screen now, ladies and gentlemen. Another development, ladies and gentlemen. This moratorium could not come at a better time. So let me explain a little bit. This information was given to us earlier this afternoon, I should say. And apparently there is a 600 lot development that has been in the works with communications and talk with the City of Seneca. Now, I'm going to explain all of this here for everybody, if you're just tuning in. This is off of Old Walhalla Highway, Kiwi School Road. And if you turn on the Old Walhalla Highway, you cross the railroad tracks, go about maybe 4/10 of a mile. It is on the left as you're going on the Old Walhalla Highway. So apparently there's been conversations about a development, that there's been conversations, allegedly, with the city administrator for Seneca. Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. Now, to put this in perspective, back in October of 2025, said administrator went to the school board. It asked the school board, would they let the old Hamilton Career Center, which is now the Bountyland Education Center, wanted to annex it into the city of Seneca. And everybody just asked, well, wonder why. Well, this may be the answer right here. 600 new homes An active adult community, significant growth pending City of Seneca annexation. Now, have in mind, this road is just off of, this property is just off a very old Walhalla Highway, 2-lane road. I can't make this up. Major infrastructure would be needed for the upgrades, including road widening, drainage, utilities, other infrastructure, because guess what? There's nothing there. But 600 acres, it is a Del Webb community proposed for Seneca. And the talk is, it's got to be annexed. And so that kind of answers the question of why the city of Seneca wanted to annex the Career Center. That was sent to us a little earlier this afternoon. So that's what kind of changed here on the show. Yes, I got my Gatorade bottle there. I'm going to post this here in a little bit for everybody to see, and you can share it with all your people. Now, there's nothing in the paper. All I can tell you is that the property is owned by, and I'll tell you the name of who the property is owned by right now, because I did pull that up earlier. The property is owned by, and I repeat, it is Kiwi Development and Holdings, LLC. There is 267 acres. The value of this property, according to Oconee County, was $1.3 million. $1.3 million. And again, the name of the development is Kiwi Development and Holdings, LLC. It's a Del Webb community. And this just came up under the radar here today. So that's where we stand. So Seneca folks, be careful. Just thought we'd give you a heads up that there is that was why one of the reasons why the Bountyland Education Center was supposed to, or wanting to be annexed into the city of Seneca, is because they have to have that in order to be able to move over into, be able to annex the significant portion of that. That's Tanglewood. That's just out on the outskirts of Tangle. Matter of fact, that is Tanglewood, the subdivision in Tanglewood. Because if you turn off Kiwi School Road on Old Walhalla Highway, you have the townhomes, or the condos, I like to call them, right there. This is near the Oconee Christian Academy, all of that area in there. And again, we talk about a strain on Kiwi School Road. There's another one. So that came to our attention this afternoon. Well, let's move on, because in other news, have you heard by now that Cross Creek filed a lawsuit against the Oconee Joint Regional Sewer Water Authority over a sewage spill? As the major lawsuit has now been filed against that organization, and it centers around the sewage spill that Cross Creek says caused major damage to its golf course and property. And click that like button if you smell it, because the smell has been overwhelming folks in this immediate area down here at Seneca, from the Return Church Road plant through Cross Creek. Matter of fact, some other subdivisions in the community, Adams subdivision in Seneca, has been complaining about the smell. Cross Creek Development of Oconee Incorporated filed the lawsuit last Thursday against the OJRSA. In complaint, Cross Creek says its property at 130 Club Drive in Seneca has been previously an aesthetically pleasing, ecologically sound, and suitable for golfing. But according to the lawsuit, the OJSRA aging sewer system has suffered from what Cross Creek describes as known documented deficiencies. And those alleged problems include excessive infiltration, inflow capacity limitation, structural deterioration, a lack of preventative maintenance, inadequate inspection, poor condition reporting, and delayed repairs. And the lawsuit claims that on or about February 13th, 2025, thousands of gallons of raw sewage, including, again, human waste. I thought this was funny here, used condoms. Must be a lot of used condoms in Oconee County. Other waste and debris, PCBs. That's one of the things that really jumped out at me in the report, was PCBs. Washed from the OJRSA sewer system onto the Cross Creek property. Now, Cross Creek alleges that the spill impacted significant areas of property, altered its biology, caused strong offensive odors to spread across the course. And again, we've mentioned the odors are still happening. The lawsuit also claims that the stormwater, raw sewage, and the PCBs contaminated the golf course, the land, and the facilities. Now, Cross Creek says that this forced the closure of operations, cancellation of events, and loss of revenue. Among the damages listed in the lawsuit, Cross Creek says the property has depreciated in value, that it lost the use and enjoyment of the property, and that the golf course was forced to close from approximately February the 14th through the 21st back in 2025. Now, Cross Creek claims the closure resulted in lost green fees, revenue, and profits of at least $35,000. The complaint also says that Cross Creek has already incurred expenses and expects to continue incurring expenses related to the damages and restoring the property to its original condition. Cross Creek further alleges that the OJSRA knew and should have known that its sewer system was structurally deficient, that overflows are likely and reoccurring, that industry and potential hazardous discharges were entering the system, and that the failure could result in environmental contamination and property damages. The lawsuit goes on to claim that the OJRSA failed to take reasonable corrective action. Cross Creek is asking the court of actual damages, or for actual damages, injunction relief, and other remedies that include an order directing the OJRSA to stop the alleged trespass, remediate the adverse effects, and restore Cross Creek's property to its original condition. Cross Creek is also seeking attorney fees and or other relief the court finds proper. Now, according to Executive Director Chris Elazar, he said the Board of Commissioners has been alerted to the matter, but because this is now a legal issue, no further comments will be issued at this time concerning this. Well, folks, here it is. This is exactly why we'll be talking about sewer, why I've been talking about growth, and why we've been talking about infrastructure and accountability on this program. Because when sewage is spilling, the lawsuits are flying, and citizens are asking the questions, well, somebody better stir the pot. And that's why we're stirring the pot. Because this is the same thing that we have brought up for years, it seems like, that we're at a tipping balance with all of the development. And again, from what I have been told and what I've asked questions, for example, right now, the plant is running at about a 50% capacity on a good day. But when you account rain or storms and the stormwater runoff, that easily can jump up easily to full capacity for the plant. And take into account that you don't even have really anything on Sewer South yet. I mean, they're still having to go down and put water in it once a month to make sure your lift stations and all of that work. So, again, you don't even have a full run of anything hooked up to Sewer South. And we're already at 50%, not to mention the complaints of the smells and how it stinks. If you live around these parts, and I grew up over next to it, I remember vaguely and waking up on or even in the evenings that the stench was just horrible. Now, my understanding is they're working on trying to do something to fix that. They've got a contract crew or getting somebody in to work on the stench. But again, the last couple of weeks for a lot of residents that live within probably about a 2.5 to 3 mile of the sewer plant, it's been pretty bad. So again, we're going to continue to follow this and see where this goes. But again, they filed a lawsuit on Thursday in Oconee County Court. And speaking of the Oconee Joint Regional Sewer Authority, they're going up. The board approves a 5% rate increase. They agreed to move forward with a 5% rate increase to cover the volumetric flows from its municipal members. Volumetric flows. And the increase will be built into the new budget, which takes effect July 1 and the start of the authority's new fiscal year. Board members had been presented with a wide range of possible rate increase before settling on 5% figure. And again, you will get passed on if you're on in the cities or wherever, if you're connected to the sewer, you're going to be paying extra for sewer. The board also approved adding $82,000 to the available funding pool for hiring and retaining needing treatment plant employees. Commissioners heard from Carrie Carvanove, who, with the company Find Great People, who emphasized the importance of competitive pay for the JRSA workers. And OJRSA employs about 22 people, from whom serve in positions required specialized skills and technical experience. One of the things we question here at the Pot Stirrer, the lawsuits, aging infrastructure, staffing needs, and higher rates. How much more pressure can Oconee sewer system take before somebody admits that this is bigger than just another budget line? And again, adding all of the things that are happening with, I'm telling you, this moratorium coming, the final vote of the moratorium is coming up at the next council meeting, could not come at a better time. We need room to breathe. We need to have some hard questions moving forward about development. And again, no one is talking about any of this. No one. But now I'm seeing the conversation is starting, which is good. But we have an issue that is brewing, and the red flags need to be thrown up now. And on top of that, if you're just tuning in or just joined us, the possibility now of another 600 lot development. Again, this one would have to have major infrastructure upgrades. Road widening, drainage, utilities, other infrastructures. I mean, again, and this affects the city of Seneca. So just have that marked in your mind coming up. Another thing that has been in the news coming up this week, actually it starts, I believe, May 18th. Let me go back here. It'll be next week, I should say. There's going to be a lot of folks up in Walhalla, and the county is going to be bracing for 700 potential jurors for a major court week. And now next week, according to Oconee County Council Chairman Matthew Durham, announced about 700 people. This was announced in the county council meeting last Tuesday night. They're expected to make up the jury pool for the General Sessions Court that opens up May 18th. The large jury pool is connected to a scheduled trial of Gregory Maxwell, who is charged in the connection of the attempted murder of the officer of the Oconee County Sheriff's Office, deputies, and during a chase in 2023. With many potential jurors being called in, Oconee County is also having to prepare for the added cost. County Council voted to transfer up to $10,000 into the Clerk of Court's budget to help cover juror compensation. And the Pot Stirrer's question, it's amazing if Clemson can move 90,000 people in and out of George Strait. I hope that Walhalla and Oconee County can smoothly handle 700 plus citizens showing up for jury duty. We are about to find out. Now, the week of the 18th could be a busy one at the courthouse, not just because of the trial itself, but because the sheer number of people being called to serve for those reporting for jury duty. I'd plan ahead, expect crowds, and bring yourself a little bit of patience. Matter of fact, in recent memory, I think that's probably the largest court case or the trial that's coming that has ever been in Oconee County history. I mean, we're talking 700 jurors potential, and they'll have to go through all of those to get 12 and some alternates. So that's on tap coming up next week for the 18th for the week. All right, one more little segment here before we go into our interview tonight. We've got Barry Sanders, the chairman of the Oconee County Republican Party, that is going to join us. I want to make sure, give me just a moment here. I want to address something that I was shown here on the podcast. Someone sent this in to me last week, and it involves two individuals who made some very stark claims about me being a racist and said I'm in the Klan. There's the names on the screen there. Apparently, I sold my soul to the Klan because you're the company you keep, and if you associate it all with Steve Black, guess what? You're a racist. All I know is Steve is a racist guy and sits on a steering committee to the Oconee County Conservatives and is a committee member, Republican Party, and is good friends with the council. I have no idea if Jeff and Steve are friends, and maybe Jeff never saw these particular comments by Steve, but I never entertained Steve or the people and put Steve in a position of power. Let me just tell you something real quickly. If interviewing elected officials, asking questions, getting their advice, well, I'm not even getting their advice, just getting on the air and talking about local information and local news that affects people. And if that's what it is, I guess, unfortunately, that is. I am really very mad about this comment because, again, my job is to get news and information, pass it along so folks is up to date. And I think that there's gone too long. There's been way too much hate, too much division, not only on national but local, but to specifically be called, I sold my soul to the Klan, referring to having Matt Durham on this program or Don Mize or Barry Sanders or anybody, I think is really a slap in my face. But you know what? I will talk to anybody any day long, but this right here is what is really sickening, and it really upsets me to the point. But I just wanted to share it that again, and you've seen those, they've made posts on the Journal and other things. But yeah, this is defamation. And again, I won't be intimidated. I can have whoever I want on this radio program, or not radio, but on this podcast. And to me, it's all about making sure that people know what's going on and the information for Oconee County, you the citizens. And if it upsets you so much that I have the chairman of the county council and Don Mize and anybody else on, then you're the problem, not me. Tommy, thanks for your comment. I really appreciate your comment. Tommy Brown checks in, loving your shows. Thank you so much for keep doing what you're doing, brother. Tommy, thank you so much for that. But again, this is part of the problem that we have here. Instead of just having a conversation and just getting the information out there so folks are know what's going on, you get called a racist and you get called. To me, that's very serious. We got enough problems here, and if you want to, you can attack me all you want. I don't really care. I'm just going to tell you the truth. And again, this is what we're supposed to do, is have these conversations and find out what's going on. Again, one of the other things that was brought up is that Don Mize was doing all of this for election time. Don been talking about this for 3 or 4 years. Okay. This didn't come out just in election. This has been coming out for 3 or 4 years. Well, they said, pointed and said that John Elliott, yeah, John was a fixture in this, but you know what? I don't care as long as we get a moratorium and we can get a little bit of breath and say, look, we got to fix this. And that's why it's important to 8 months, whatever it takes. We got one shot here in the county to get things right. And again, I believe that our current elected officials, and I'm hoping our planning commission is going to get it fixed. We have to. If we don't get it fixed, Oconee County is going over a cliff and we can't stop it. And it's been that way for a while. And again, I'm seeing the changes that I campaigned for when I was running 4 years ago. Again, I see no reason to change. Things are happening that needed to happen. I guess I'll get called out for saying this. I finally find that we have a county council that's got testicular fortitude. Do you know what the definition of testicular fortitude? They have a set and they're doing the right things. And as long as they do the right things, there's no issues. And again, they're doing the right things. And I hope that they continue to do that. But one of the biggest things that we've got to take a look at going forward is getting the sewer. This sewer plant over here, there's issues coming. And we better hope that we've got a real plan coming up. And again, the county really not into the sewer business. The problem lies with the municipalities. I mean, it's going to be on their dole. They're going to have to be the ones to credit. Yes, you have a Joint Regional Sewer Water Authority. And again, I think at one time they were trying to put a representative on from the county, but Oconee County is not in the sewer business. So those are some of the things that's going to be coming down the way. Let's get your comments. What do you have to say here this evening on the podcast? You can hop in on our social media. You can also text me. Let me give you the text line if you want to make a comment. 864-719-2501 is our text line. Tommy, again, thank you for those comments there. Coming up here in just a few moments, we're going to have that interview that I conducted last Wednesday with Barry Sanders from the Oconee County Republican Party. We'll start going in and talking a little bit about things that are happening with the election coming up, and we do have a primary coming up. General election in November, the midterms. Your guess is as good as mine is who's going to win the governor. We've got a whole slew of them, and I'm pretty sure that the governor's race is probably going to go into a runoff. I don't see any reason for it not to, because there's just so many. I think a lot of folks are turning their attention for the Senate seat. Mark Lynch, Lindsey Graham. There's a toss-up that I can't answer right now. Again, we'll just have to wait and see. We've got a lot of things coming in a short time to get there. As the old saying goes, eastbound and down. All right, Gladys, thank you for checking in this evening here on the Pot Stirrer podcast. By the way, this is show number 7, I believe. Show number 7. Our good friend David Hood from TigerNet released a story just a little while ago that I thought was kind of interesting. Clemson Athletics yesterday, or actually, just a little while ago this afternoon, released a few monetary figures from the George Strait concert. 90,037 fans attended the George Strait concert at Clemson University's Memorial Stadium, which set a new all-time attendance record for the stadium, surpassing the previous 86,000 set in 1999. It was also reported as George Strait's biggest show and largest show ever outside the state of Texas. But check this out. The athletic department released the following figures. In alcohol sales, 106,000 units were sold that generated $1.8 million in gross revenue. Total food and beverage, including alcohol, saw 185,262 units sold, generating over $2.8 million in gross revenue. Here's an interesting comparison. Clemson generated $1.8 million in gross revenue and sold 173,000 units, just over 7 home games at Memorial Stadium. So one concert eclipsed everything of 7 home football games. Well, the good news is the athletic department will receive a portion of these revenues, as well as a stadium rental fee and reimbursement from Clemson Ventures. Ventures retains additional revenue beyond these categories. Now, here's a good news. If you ever wanted to rent athletic department, if you ever wanted to rent the stadium, Clemson's Death Valley Memorial Stadium, the venue price was $6,000 per day for a total of 8 days, totaling $48,000 in rental. And that is the internal fee for renting out to a campus organization, though. I wonder how much if we wanted to have a Pot Stirrer podcast in Death Valley, right on the 50-yard line of the Tiger Paw. And don't forget, there's another concert set for next month. Morgan Whalen is supposed to be bringing his Still the Problem tour to Memorial Stadium Friday and Saturday, January 26th and 27th. He'll be joined by guests Brooks and Dunn, Ella Langley, which I'd love to go see, by the way, Jason Scott in the High Heat for 2 nights in the Valley, supporting artist vary per the show. So again, there you go. Oh, let's see what we've got here. You calling out the people defame you needs to happen more often. We have the same problem with people spewing all sorts of garbage regarding Westminster through all the community pages, lies, bold accusations about the mayor, administrator, council, city, outlandish, and accusations that never have to answer for. Unfortunately, byproduct of living in a small town, I guess it's ridiculous that people have nothing better to do than stir the pot if only they were forced to lick the spoon. Oh, Jonathan, pretty good there. I wouldn't want to lick their. I wouldn't want to lick the spoon at all. I surely no, I wouldn't. Jonathan, appreciate you calling it in. Michael checks in, asks me, do you support redrawing the congressional districts? Well, that's a tough question. I now know that the District 3 level here is going to be part of Richland now. I did see where parts of Columbia now is going to be in the 3rd Congressional District under the new regulations or under the new redrawing. You know, sometimes I think we've lost our mind. It's happening everywhere. I mean, we started Texas and it just went downhill. I don't know. I've always been the firm believer, you know, we have a Republican, we have Democrats, we have left versus right, and sometimes I wonder if the old two-party system is actually even worth it. I think we've got to I think it's just gotten worse. The left doesn't want to know, doesn't agree to what the right, and the right doesn't agree to what the left, and here we are, the people, just us people. We're stuck in the middle of this damn fight, and here we are. It's crazy. It really is. And I don't know if I can legitimately answer that question. If I don't. I just think everywhere I look, it's either gone too far left, it's gone too far right. What about the people that are struggling and working hard and trying their best to go to work and support their family? And this is what I say about all this development here. All of this development coming in, can anybody justify for me what affordable housing is? Is 200,000 now affordable housing? Is 300,000 affordable housing? That's the other issue. No one seems to tell me what affordable housing is. And again, let's face it, Oconee County has changed. The dynamics of this county has changed in just the last 10 years, if not a little bit longer. Again, this development that we're having an issue with now, Oconee is not the only one. It's everywhere. It's Pickens, it's Greenville, it's the whole state of South Carolina. Again, Clemson, you know, I go to a concert last Saturday night to go see George Strait down at Clemson, and I don't even recognize the university that I spent 25 years working at. I don't recognize it. The town, downtown. I think if we want to talk about a community that has sold themselves out, Clemson definitely has sold something out because, my God, everywhere you stand, you look up, it's, and my biggest fear, that's going to happen right here in Oconee County. Michael, you make a good point. 200,000, you need to have 2 people working to pay the mortgage. I'm not even sure right now giving 2 people can pay the mortgage with $200,000. And that's where we're at. We've got an issue. Where do we get? And then our chairman has made a great point about jobs, trying to get folks to invest with businesses, so that people doesn't have to leave to go outside of Oconee County. And he's made some great points on this. And I'll bring this point up. The school district is another prime example here. You know, in 1965, we had around 10,500 students attending Oconee County schools, and that's with more schools too in 65. Now that same number is below the 10,500. We're about 10,000, almost 9,900. That we have students going to Oconee County schools with less schools than we had in 1965. But that number of families with kids coming in we're not increasing. We're actually decreasing in the schools. But it just goes to show you the dynamics of who's moving in here. People are moving in here, and again, they're retiring. The COVID had a big push for folks moving in here right after COVID. When things should have slowed down, they didn't. They increased with development and businesses. But again, Matt has been sounding the alarm about that, and he's correct in certain things. Let me see what I got here. Got a text message that just came in. Pretty good. We have an Oconee County, someone just texted in the Sewer South Debit Clock Real-Time Cost Tracker. And let's check this out. I just got this on a text message here just a few moments ago from somebody. Sewer South debt clock. Oconee County, South Carolina, gross cost net after $9.9 million confirmed grants. I'll have to go through this and take a look at that, but we'll find out. Somebody sent that to me just a few moments ago. I did see where today, I haven't found out if it has been officially, but I know President Donald Trump wanted to get rid of the, federal income tax for the gas tax for feds. And I don't even know if I don't even think the state approved it. I don't even think it made it out of committee. That would be a help, but what happens if you reduce all of that? It's going to be raised anyway. So there you go. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and jump in. On Wednesday of last week, I had a great opportunity to sit down in our studio in Salem. Tonight, we're actually here at my home studio here in Seneca. Had an opportunity to sit down and discuss with Barry Sanders, who's the chairman of the Oconee Republican Party. We go into a great conversation. We talk about some election things that are coming up with the Republican Party and have just a good conversation. So what we're going to do now, we're going to play that, and we'll come back here after done, and we'll wrap that up right now. Welcome to a special event here on the Podster podcast. I'm Jazzy Jeff. Glad to have you along this evening. I probably need another good cup of coffee here for some reason. It's one of those days where it's thundering, it's raining, but we've got some exciting news here because in studio, ladies and gentlemen, today, I want to bring on our wonderful chairman of the Oconee County Republican Party, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Barry Sanders. Barry, it is a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you, Jeff. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm just living the dream, and
I'll be remiss if I didn't ask you how you got the nickname Jazzy. We got to talk there.
Yeah. All right, I'll tell you how I got the name. So when I started in this business at age 14, which seemed like it was just yesterday, I was given the name Jeff the Intern.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, about 2 years later, because I was so happy and I'd get a little animated on the radio when I was playing music and have a little bit of fun, somebody walked in the studio and said, "Why don't you just call yourself Jazzy Jeff?" And that's how I got the name Jazzy Jeff.
Now, where was this at?
Okay, I started in Seneca at WSNW, WBFM. This was in Clemson when I went to WCCP, as they were an oldie station, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And I love oldies. That's kind of like what I do now. I'm 60s, 70s, and 80s. So I just unwind and let it go. Just have a lot of fun. I do. I enjoy it. I've been doing this for 35 years.
Wow, you still do the DJ thing, too.
I still do the DJ thing. We just did I did a party the other day for our friends from ARC, the Oconee folks over with ARC and Special Friends, some of our children that, I want to say disabled. Those kids have they have a lot of life in them. And again, I go over there for the fourth year in a row. And play music for them, and it's just kind of like it's the highlight of my year.
Is it like a prom for them?
It's kind of like that. That's what they do.
That's
they
cool.
have a dinner for them, and they come out there, and those kids, they love to dance, and I love to get right in the middle with them and just have a wonderful time, and it's the smiles that I see on these kids' faces, and some of the young adults, too, are there. And it's a great time, and I do a lot of stuff like that here in the community, especially for that group, Miss Leanne Parker, who's been a big part of that group for many years, and the Treble Center, I do a lot for them. We're going to do a 4th of July parade.
Really?
We've been doing this on the radio and on video, and all the kids and all the young adults get dressed up in their 4th of July best, and they take a tour and drive around. It's just like a regular parade, and I love it. I enjoy wonderful times with those folks. So
that's great, man.
So tell me, we've got a lot coming up around here. We have the Republican primary is just up and around the corner. And tell me how things are going so far as you're inching towards that primary.
Well, there's a lot of interest right now in the Republican primary because here in Oconee County and in most part of the state of South Carolina, the primaries are the election. And that's just the way it is. And in Oconee County, the Republican usually goes on to win the general, so this is the big election season. Jeff, we don't have a lot of primary races going on. We really have two right now in Oconee. One is the District 3, which is Don Mize versus Landon Lyles. And we also have a House Representative race, and I think it's District 1, Bill Whitmire versus Craig Diem. Both races are on the Republican side, so we can't endorse or support,
Right,
but
right.
we can definitely talk about the candidates and what they're standing for and what we're going with. So fire away. We can talk any way you want to about
Well,
this.
let's go ahead first of all and let's look at District 3. Of course, we have Don Mize, the incumbent, who has almost completed his first full 4-year term on county council. We have a relatively newcomer, which is Landon Lyle, who, by the way, college kid at University of South Carolina, young, to me, bright individual, up and coming. I think as the years go by, I think he's going to be a future asset for the
Oh, yes.
Republican Party. As a little age and a little experience comes up under him, I think he's got some bright ideas coming up.
Well, you've got a completely different spectrum or dichotomy for these two candidates here. Don, wise, deliberate, thinks about what he says, and he's a very good guy, kind of soft spoken, and I really appreciate Don and his wisdom, and I listen to him frequently. And it's interesting, we're having this conversation after a county council meeting last night, and then you have Latin. He's dynamic, energetic, effervescent, very, very, very bright fellow, and it's going to come down, I think, to this: do the people in District 3, do they want experience, or they want a different direction? And that's going to be a key component. And can Landon articulate a vision for the future? So with that, but also, can Don articulate a reason to send him back to the council? Basically, an unfinished business mandate. I think that would be good. Don's got a lot of experience on the council, and I've asked him questions, and I've come to lean on him, on certain things, especially with this mandate that they talked about last night. There's a lot there to unpack, and it's rather complex, and I like the way he's able to take a very complex issue, boil it up, and explain it to me in a way I can understand it without having to get too far into the weeds on it. So he does a good job with that.
One of the things you're referring to is last night at the county council meeting, and that was Wednesday night, the 5th. County council had their meeting, was the moratorium that Don spearheaded to lead, and it was voted on 5-0. It was unanimously approved. This is kind of the legislation that I think a lot of folks here in Oconee County has been wanting for many years. And in my years of following Oconee County government, I have to be honest, that's the first time that I have ever seen such unity amongst the council to finally address an issue that is a touchy subject. When you start talking about density and planning and property rights, again, with all this development, I think this is a good start to go back to the Planning Commission and let's take a look and see how we can best improve the rules and regulations that we have set forth, but also to put in some checks and balances a little bit. So if a developer does want to come into Oconee County, we're not saying no to the growth. What we're saying is, okay, we have to take a responsible approach to this, making sure that there's some checks and balances. And I think last night with this is a good step to address some of those concerns with the Planning Commission and with the county.
Absolutely, Jeff. And I'm going to spin this a different question. I'm going to ask you a question. When was the last time that you saw a development over 12, 15 lots go before the council or go before the Seneca City Council and not have, protesters or I mean, it's not only was this needed, it was probably overdue for years. And this has been something that's been pushed by previous councils in the past to this one. And it kind of fell in their lap to say, okay, enough's enough. We went past the breaking point, I think, in this point to say, look, we have to address these issues. The infrastructure of Oconee County is not sufficient right now to take on a number of these large projects. Council needed a respite. Council needed a break to kind of work through this. And like you said, the Planning Commission needed a chance to kind of catch up and say, okay, what is needed? Because right now we're going toward a cliff and we can't pull back. So it was needed. It was necessary. It was a good thing. No matter where you sit on the political spectrum, it does allow for that.
Well, our last show, I had Don and Matt Durham, chairman of the Oconee County Council. I had them in here, and one of the other things that we were discussing is the potential of hopping from, for example, if a developer comes in and wants to annex into a city, then they have to follow the city standards But if they can't get their way, they could always jump into the county side. There needs to be some municipal overlays put in place so that you're not having a developer come in to hop. If he can't get what he wants, he goes to the other side. And again, we almost saw that in Neary. That's been a huge issue with a lot of community members about how the developer came in and wanted to try to sidestep some of those development standards. So I think it would be good to have these checks and balances as going forward, because growth here, and again, born and raised here, I've lived here 50 years, the growth that we're experiencing has been directly related from post-COVID. When COVID hit, it was like everybody wanted to make a mass exit from the large cities, whether it be California, Texas, or not Texas, but New York, and some of the areas that were really hardcore. You know, you got to wear your mask, you can't get outside, things like that. So that's where we have a lot of those folks escaping, and then all of a sudden the development just went out the roof. And again, we've really not had a conversation about should we work on fixing some of these issues in at least 20 years. And tonight, last night at the council meeting was one of the first steps that I have seen in my lifetime that, again, the council are saying, okay, we need to fix this. And hats off and kudos to every one of those council members for doing the right thing. Again, we don't want to stop growth. We're just wanting to make sure that it is responsible growth. My biggest fear, Barry, is winding up like Clemson, South Carolina. I worked at Clemson for 20 something years, and that community has been destroyed by everywhere you look. It's high rise everywhere. Again, you've been a part of this community for a few years now. You're moving up here. Back 25 years ago, we had that same issue with high rise. You know, they were wanting to put a 12-story high rise condo on Lake Kiwi just 20 something years ago. So that should tell you that at that time we had nothing. They actually could have done it had the neighbors not taken them to court. So it's a way to have responsible growth, and that's what we're asking for.
So it's a very interesting question, which is how do you balance the needs of the current citizens and voters with the expectations for what's coming forward? First thing, I love when we have people come in and they basically say, I'm here now, so put up a wall. No one else is allowed in. Okay.
I've heard that one many times.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we, to put this in a framework that we're going to have a conversation about it, and that is that we don't want to end up like Atlanta and Charlotte, where most of the people are coming from Atlanta or Charlotte, and they're coming after they have their kids and they move up here and they want a easier way of life, they want a slower pace, and they want to enjoy the lakes and the natural beauty. That's great. But the problem is, we've had basically 10,000 students in our school district for years, decades, and it's not growing. We need something here where we keep the kids when they graduate West Oak or Walhalla or Seneca and move on. We want them to remain here. So there's training with, Tri-Counties and the Hamilton Technical Center, but also we need the industries here. So all of these come into play. Now, we have a strong real estate market around Lake Kiwi, Lake Jocassee, and Hartwell, but the development for what they call starter homes or entry-level homes, it's a kind of a catch-22.
You're right.
And that's what we're saying. But also we want the charm of Walhalla, and Tim Hall does a great job in Walhalla, and they want it here in Seneca, that small town feel. But at the same time, they're saying, well, why can't we plow down and put up homes, gentrification? I'm not a big fan of that, to be honest with you. I know a lot of people are. They want walking communities, things like this, but the roots of this small town are unique and they're great. And Oconee County is, let's just call it what it is. It's agricultural. You've got, if you go up toward Mountain Rest, things like this, you've got the mountain countries and things like that. That's what makes this place very unique. And the people are the asset. Jeff, if we don't do something right now to balance the economic needs, but also this allows the council to look at some of these economic development projects like Golden Technologies corners, things like this.
Yeah.
We want those industries to come in here because we need the jobs here. And that's a big part of what we need to be focusing on. Right now, all we're doing is building homes, and we're putting strain on the sewer system and traffic and things like this, which I think is funny coming out of Atlanta. Traffic to me is one thing. Traffic here in Seneca is a different. So
yeah, what traffic to you is easy to get through. Traffic in Atlanta is 3 times, or if you're going to a George Strait concert on Saturday night and stuck in traffic till 4 o'clock in the morning. But again,
that's a Tuesday in Atlanta, brother.
Knowing the back roads I know, we were home by 1 o'clock. So
Amen.
I was glad to. But you're right. Everything that you're saying is exactly right. And again, it seems like not this council, but previous councils, the old expression is we took a beer can and we kicked it down the road.
Absolutely.
Instead of having the conversations about the sewer and infrastructure. And I want folks to understand this is a misconception, too, about county. The county is not in the sewer business. Mm-hmm. The county really never has been in, quote, the sewer business because of other things. The sewer is owned by the municipalities, the Oconee Joint Regional Sewer Water Authority. So when it comes to anything, they're the ultimate responsible. But now county council, or the county, does have a seat now at the table when it comes to sewer under the new reorganization. So understand, when you say the county should do something, the county really doesn't have a lot of control over sewer. But by making sure that these development standards are met, that we making sure that when they come in, that it's not going to tax it. And again, at the end of the day, the municipalities and the folks that live in the municipalities are the ones that's going to have to pay the taxes on the sewer.
Absolutely.
I want folks to understand that. The people that live in Mountain Rest is not going to, because they don't have sewer. But city residents of Walhalla, Westminster, Seneca, and, West Union is now working a deal to become a part of the Joint Regional Sewer Water Authority. They're the ones that ultimately have to pay the price when there's issues with the sewer.
But that's also, if you think about it, when we talk about structure, you're absolutely right. Council should either be pumping the brakes right now and giving us a chance for these infrastructure, because right now, if you really want to have a deep look at it, we could say the water issues in Walhalla, the power issues in Westminster, sewer issues in Seneca, and then of course roads. Okay. All these come into play. I think that the schools do a great job preparing, but like I said, after graduation,
They're gone.
They're
Yeah.
gone. That night they're taking off. And so we need something. So council's trying to balance this by saying, look, we need to kind of stop the growth on one side, pump the gas on the economic development on another one, get some of these projects started and get some of these businesses here, because there's plenty of ghost towns up north toward the North Carolina border that you could look at right now. In the PD district, you go through some of these towns, you'll see one car and 80 buildings boarded up. I mean, it's sad, but that's the way it is, because they're moving to these big cities. Here, we've got the exact opposite. And the problem is, we need the structure to continue the infrastructure growth, because right now you're going to be at a breaking point anyway. It's a good time to stop, take the respite, plan it out, and then move forward, Jeff. So I think that's it. But also, the tax rolls associated with the municipalities right now are at a critical breaking point. And I do think that we do need some conservatives on these municipalities right now to kind of keep things on a financially stable environment, not just now, and not looking at pet projects when it comes to their pet projects, but it's also for the infrastructure. I know it's not the sexiest thing to talk about, but it is important.
It is very important.
And it's something we need to. So talking about the roads, talking about the potholes, cute. We've become a meme all over the nation.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, the meme of driving from North Carolina to South Carolina, that video that circulated on Facebook just last year, all nice and smooth, but yet when you cross over to South Carolina, you're... And again, understand, too, that county council or Oconee County is only responsible for certain roads.
Absolutely.
And again, they, I think last year took a big step in paving more of the county roads that had ever been paved in the history. If there was one great positive thing last year, it was that a lot of the county roads finally were getting attention where they hadn't been paved in 20 or 30 years. But a lot of the state stuff belongs with our state legislature. It belongs with all of those folks, because the majority, state roads. And I don't know if they ever were able to, and this is a question that I'm going to have for Adam Duncan and Bill Whitmire. They're going to be coming in here in the next week or two. There was this, I think, legislation they were going to try to, I guess, make the municipalities and the city and the county start paving the roads.
And I think our county did a good job saying, hey, that's not a good thing either. Because
It's not.
It's not. And this is an interesting conversation that happens a lot is you have a wish list of all the things you want, and then there's the taxes. And do you want to increase taxes? Well, right now, like I said last night, the county council cut the boat tax. Well, if you don't have a boat, you're angry. If you do have a boat, you're saying, thank God, it's about time.
Yes, about time.
A lot of Oconee County residents do have boats. And so it's a cost savings to them. So what I'm saying here is, at some point, because this has been going on for decades, not years, Jeff, decades, where it's been pushed down, it's been kicked down the street. This council finally said, hey, we're going to have to kind of stop and we're going to have to kind of push the brakes a little bit to stop, get the house in order, do some strategic planning, and go from there. So I think they did a really good thing. Maybe our municipalities can also take a lesson from them to say, look, infrastructure is important because we do want to grow. So, and like I said, municipalities should watch carefully, and some of them do a very good job with that.
All right, I'm going to move on to a great conversation here, Barry, concerning things of happening with not only the county council, but as we talked about the development and things like that. Again, January 9th is the Republican primary. We started with the district, June 9th.
June 9th.
What did I say?
January.
No, excuse me, June 9th. Let's make sure we get that right.
Right.
I don't want you to show up. January 9th is actually my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, let's make sure that it is June 9th. And again, District 3 for Republican is going to be Don Mize, who's the incumbent, and Landon Lyle. Now, I want to move up to District 1. There's not a primary for District 1, but William Bull is the candidate that will be running in the general election in November.
That is correct.
And we're going to get him so folks can become acquainted to what he stands for and have an interview with him coming up here, too, in a few weeks. I want to move into District 1 in the side for the representative for South Carolina House. And we have the legendary longtime incumbent Bill Whitmire versus
Craig Diem.
Craig Diem. Okay.
Right.
I wanted to make sure that I had that name correctly.
So prior to Adam Duncan winning, if you look at Oconee County, we have people that went back to Bill Clinton's era. So when Adam Duncan, he's new, he's going for a re-election for his first time. Whitmire is in that long-serving suit. He's also, I believe, on Ways and Means, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee down in Columbia. Mr. Whitmire has been in the Walhalla area for quite a while. He's known by a lot of folks. Craig Diem is from Ohio. He's actually from Pickens County, not Oconee County. He's on the other side. But I have gotten a chance to know him, and he espouses the conservative values and things like this. This is an interesting race as well. Basically, almost a carbon copy of the county race at District 3. You have a chance to send Bill back to Columbia to finish a drill. And also, Craig is wanting to cut a different direction. There's a lot of key things going on in Columbia, whether it's close primaries, or we could talk about the redistricting that McMaster wants to do in the 6th district, which is Jim Clyburn. There's a lot of things going on down there that need to be addressed. Judicial reform seems to be a hot button issue as well, Jeff. So those are three. I admire Craig for stepping up, but in my just novice experience, the issues in Columbia and how things are done and that culture leads itself to needing reform. So to go there down to Columbia and be a champion of reform is a good thing, but boy, that is an arduous task right now to go against somebody who's been a sitting representative for what, 3 decades now?
He's been 3 decades.
3 decades.
And Bill has, in my opinion, really done a great job representing District 1. Bill's background, of course, he's a retired school teacher. And just to tell you how about Bill, my wife, who is a graduate of Walhalla High School, Bill Whitmire was her teacher, taught history. So that goes back a little bit. But Bill has been very fixture in making sure that Oconee is well represented and has done so much for the community. I want to touch on Adam Duncan.
Okay.
I think Adam Duncan, replacing a long time Bill Sanford, replacing Bill Sanford, but Adam has went down there and done a superb job.
He absolutely has. Adam has navigated those crocodile-infested waters very well, and surprisingly for a first term, you know, you got to admire Adam because he stayed away from the Freedom Caucus and all the different caucuses. He's joining the Republican caucus, from what I understand, this term in this legislative session. Adam's going to have some challenges in the near future. I mean, that's no surprise. I mean, he's owned his mistake and he's working through it.
Right,
That's
correct.
a good thing. But if we just look at what his body work is in the legislature, he's done a fantastic job. And I could be more proud of him being my representative, and he actually is. He's done a great job. He's open to conversations and things like this. And when I talk to the people in the Republican Party, you find that he has these dialogues and he tries to explain things, and he's very honest about it too. If he has not seen the guts of a bill or something like that, he'll let him know. He'll research it and take a look and get back to him. So I admire that transparency and that candor is something that you do not see a lot in politics. So I hope he keeps that up.
And also, too, being able to inform the community of what's happening. Graciously, Adam and Bill have agreed to be on the show here, and we're going to talk a little bit more in the coming weeks about. I think there's kind of a disconnect with folks here in Oconee County is that a lot of times they don't know what is happening in their state government. And I find that has been the thing for many, many years is that when it comes to things happening out of Columbia, a lot of our citizens are not aware that things happen that affect them, the citizens here. So that's one of the reasons why this show to me is very important is that I'm going to be able to talk about those things that folks need to know that this could affect you so that they can have a little bit of say in that process.
Well, Jeff, this show is critical and vital because if you have a citizenry who is engaged and knowledgeable, it tamps down corruption. Corruption spreads like a disease or a plague when citizens aren't watching and governance isn't accountable. And this has been going on for a very long time. Not to say that our long-term senator or representative are corrupt. What I'm saying is the system creates that because you become a proxy and you send lobbyists down there instead of you going down there yourself. So what ends up happening is you don't know the issues. You're relying on third-person information or a social media post, and that's not going to work. You become engaged. You understand the players, whether it's a attorney general race or the governor's race, and then you find out the differences. You make a good decision. Right now, the culture of Columbia has to change. And I'm not saying I'm endorsing or supporting anyone in this. What I'm saying is I support reform and change and the grassroots, the voice of the grassroots not being ignored. Jeff, this is vital because the more people know about what's going on in their government, you get the less complaining and you get better actions.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And a great example of what you were just talking about is actually now on the local side. And I'm going to go back to the sanctuary code issue.
Sure.
Again, that whole process, we've said this before, the process of way that all of this came out, and I don't want to say was underhanded, but I will say that it lacked a lot. The citizens felt that they weren't getting heard, and that's one of the reasons why I felt, well, wait a minute, we need to hear from what our community's having to say and let them know that, hey, you can go and talk about these things. If you have an issue, this is where you need to start. I call it Civics 101, and I'm not quite sure in this younger generation if we're even teaching Civics 101 as much as we were when I graduated in 1994, because that was a big portion of our graduation, government econ, that, we had to have that as a senior. But there's a lot of seniors, or there's a lot of our community members just aren't sure how to go about it. How do we petition our government? How do we talk about these things when we feel that something's wrong? And it's important to hear from the people themselves. I've always found that I'd rather listen to somebody that's representing me than pick up the local newspaper and read it and not hear the inflection or how serious or important this issue is. And that's one of the reasons why I think, given this show, what we're trying to do in the format, it's a little bit different. I'm not sitting up here trying to, well, I want the information to get out to our citizens. I want them to be engaged. And if they have a question, to be able to talk to their elected representatives. I call it government 101, is the way I see it.
So I think Patrick and Ian James do a great job at West Oak and West Oak Middle School. I think they do a great job in their civics program. I do know that that is going on, and I applaud them for that. When it comes to what you're talking about here, you're spot on. And I'll give you an example. There was a bill that was put up in the House. It was called the closed primary bill. And it was a convoluted thing because it was just, people were just talking about the one title, and they didn't understand the bulk of it. It had nothing to do with closed primaries. And what it became was a soundbite. And sometimes we operate in sound bites. To your point, the three words I want to say is listen and get involved. Those three words mean everything. It's not fun. You have to spend time to get to know the players. You've got to research. You've got to read, and you just can't absorb or get it off of AI. You have to actually, get your hands dirty a little bit and listen to the issues per se, because if not, you've got another sanctuary cove going right next door. Mm-hmm. And you had no idea what was going on. All you saw was the zoning notice sign out front. You were completely ambushed.
Again, had I not looked on the agenda for the Seneca Planning Commission, I don't think anybody would have known. To this moment, I still don't know what possessed me. Maybe it was a divine intervention or something.
Oh, yeah.
But I got on there and, I knew about the things that were happening with some of the other developments that they were being annexed in the city. But then when I got down there and saw this Sanctuary Cove, South Cove, to me, it threw up red flags because I know there's already an issue there with traffic. There has been now for the last 10 years with so much of the congestion of Kiwi School Road, South Cove Road, from people coming using the parks. And the more I got to read, I'm thinking, condos here? And again, we've already had this issue. So I made a few phone calls and I said, this is coming. We need to have a little conversation here. So again, a lot of folks got involved. They heard what I was saying. They showed up. They heard from themselves. That's where, to me, the process kind of broke down, is how the Planning Commission, and again, I'm going to say something about Oconee County. At least when you come to Oconee County, you can talk, you can voice your opinion, they listen. But it was just like this was already made up. And I told you, perception is reality.
So on that, I want to build on your point here. I look at it a little differently. I look at it as, if you want a preview of things to happen if you don't get involved, if you continue to sit on the sidelines and you don't become a part of the party and you don't listen, you don't engage, and you don't understand the issues, on Memorial Day weekend and Labor Day weekend around here is going to be a preview, because if you look at Lake Lanier in Atlanta, if you look at Lake Norman in Charlotte, what's going on there, this is what you're facing in 10 to 15 years. You're not going to see what's going on in Lake Kiwi or Kiwi Key. That's going to be, instead of the norm, that's going to be the exception.
That's going to be the exception. They're the ones that's not going to have hardly anything because it's behind a gated community. But if you want to get out and enjoy your own lake, it'll be like I-85 at the worst day.
Absolutely. And if you go on Memorial Day down Rochester Highway here, it's wall to wall, backed up. Everybody's trying to go to Ingalls and Publix and things like this. And I get it. I mean, that's a big economic boom that weekend. But for the residents, that's a problem. And this is what we're facing if we do not get involved and if we don't engage in civics and discourse and having these conversations to say, look, what is a balance between development, economic development, residential development, and infrastructure? If we don't do it now, because you can't say 100%, it's not an absolute.
Right.
It is not an absolute, Jeff. We're going to have to do it both ways.
Exactly.
It.
Absolutely.
And you've been here how many years
I was
now?
born and raised here 50 years.
50 years.
Yep.
You've seen changes.
Well, I can tell you the change I saw. South Cove in 1986, I stood on the point. There used to be a picnic shelter on the campground area years ago. And again, I could look from left to right, and there was a few houses on the left, but I could look all the way until I saw the Lake Kiwi Marina, and there was nothing. It was trees. It was green. And now, if I go back down there, there is from left to right homes, 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 and even more homes.
So I want to give you two contrasting stories. The first is Fair Oaks High School over there in Fairplay, right?
The elementary school.
The elementary school.
Gotcha.
Well, it used to be a high school.
Yeah, years ago. Mm-hmm.
And now it's a senior center and an activity center and rec center. That was a high school at one time.
Oh, I'm sorry, Oakway High School.
Oakway,
That
yes.
was Oakway. Yes.
It's now called the Fair Oaks.
It's a Fair Oaks Community Center,
Thank
and
you.
they do. They have a recreation department there too.
So I've been there a couple of times, whether it's with Sheriff Crenshaw and his team when they do their community meals or
Correct.
things like this. I mean, they do a fantastic job, and shout out to Sheriff Crenshaw. Compare that with Gwinnett County, right outside of Atlanta.
Very familiar.
Every 3 years, they have a new high school, and the high schools cost $65 million. Second-year high school was state of the art 5 years ago. And now they're building onto it and putting trailers onto it. And it's $65 to $70 million. Buford High School. Now, that's a city school, but Buford High School was $70 million or $100 million, and they have a $70 million stadium. These are taxpayer dole burdens. And what I'm saying is that you've got one that's fading, which was Oakway, and you've got one that can't keep up with the growth. And at some point, if your voice isn't heard in Oconee County, it can go one way or the other. But we've got to be more involved, because if not, our kids are going to continue to move away. But we don't want to make this a free-for-all where we have condos turning around every single time. And it's going to look like, Myrtle Beach. I don't think we want that either. So there's got to be something that we can do. And there's some smart people here in Oconee. They'll figure it out. But the problem is, if they sit on the sidelines, those brains and those ideas just sit on the sideline too. So I welcome what you have to offer here and, your listeners, because we need that type of engagement. We need these ideas, and the representatives want to hear from you. The sad part is some of them don't ever hear from you guys. And that's the sad part. And that's where we're trying to say, hey, look, we got to fix that.
Well, we need, when the thing of it is with the legislative delegation, when they have their annual meeting, it's very important to talk to our elected representatives. Those meetings are open for our citizens, and it's a great opportunity to have one-on-one dialogue. If you've got an issue or something, it's great to have these conversations, because I have found that if there's an issue or a problem with most of our elected representatives, matter of fact, all of them so far, if I've had an issue or I needed to ask a question, I've got an answer from Thomas Alexander all the way down.
Absolutely.
And I find that this county council that we have now has been one of the most transparent and open and honest councils that in my whole history, born and raised here, I've ever seen. And I could tell you some stories. We could go back for 20 and 30 years when we had when we were on the county supervisor form of government. His name was Norman Crane. He was longtime county supervisor. It was the coin phrase "Stormin' Norman." He was the original one before Norman Schwarzkopf got it. Really, because it was his way or the highway. And if you didn't agree with him, he didn't care. He wouldn't listen. It was just the way it was. And Oconee government had never been receptive to listening to the people up until Matt Durham's. Again, we have Tommy James now, Glenn Hart, longtime born and raised here, Seneca guy, Don Mize, same thing, and John Elliott has come a long way.
Okay.
So all of them now are more open and honest and wanting to be transparent. And I give kudos to Matt Durham. Came on the show. We had conversations. Matt and I have been able to set aside the differences that we once had and to openly have a conversation about this forensic audit. I think this is the huge that Matt recognized a problem, but your new administrator come in and said, wait a minute, here's an issue with the health insurance. But instead of trying to sweep it under the rug, as a phone just fell, but that's okay.
We're good.
I think it's a ghost, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Instead of sweeping it under the rug, we actually had take it head on and transparency. This is something in Oconee County government that I've never seen before. And it's shocking. It's new. And it's exciting to see that Matt Durham says, okay, we've got a problem. We need a forensic audit. We need to find where the issues lie. It started in 2014. We'll get those answers, but yet have a plan to be able to overcome the shortfalls and potentially not have to raise taxes. That's transparency you don't get that a lot. And I appreciate this transparency that we're seeing.
So when it comes to these issues, Jeff, we get there's a paradox that happens in government, and that is the person who usually causes the issue. And I'll give you, for example, in 2010, they passed the Affordable Care Act. They called it Obamacare. And the impacts weren't felt until really Trump was in his first tenure. So his first administration. So Trump didn't cause the issues, but he inherited the issues. So the council is actually inheriting issues from previous councils, and they're doing a good job of bringing this out and saying, here's what it is. For me, issues are going to come up every day, whether it's a natural disaster like Helene hit the other time or the wildfires that happened. They've done a good job of handling these as they've come. But at the same time, like you said, transparency is key and foremost, because things happen. It's how you respond to them. And they've done a great job of how they've handled it. Some people have beaten them up saying, hey, there's this deficit on the tax structures and things like this. And I get it. Okay, yes, that's the first read. But some of these things go years back and have just been accruing and accumulating.
Right.
They've taken the steps, but also I think there's been a $6 million swing where they were looking at a deficit this year. Now there's a positive surplus of 1.5 million. That's good. So they won't have to dip into the rainy day fund. That's solid. But I want to point this out. It's not just county. It's the municipality. So at Seneca, I believe that they're about to have their first read for the budget for this year. Is that correct?
We hope. We haven't seen anything. There's been no, but yeah, May.
It is overdue then. It is overdue.
May is that you have to have your first reading in May.
For me, that's key and critical that we need citizenry there at that first read, or to find out what's going on in the budget with these municipalities, because that's where rubber meets the road. That's where they're telling you where their capital structures are. That tells you if they're making money or losing money. Those are key things. I know it's silly and it sounds like accounting and it's, debits and credits. However, that is where a lot of these things come from. If they don't have the money, they can't make all these promises.
Correct.
They're just doing the blocking and tackling. I'm concerned some of these municipalities may not have as much money as we thought, because the grants from COVID have been the PPP program, PPP3 under Biden, those are running out. And now a lot of these are having to rely just on their components and their tax dollars, not the federal government grants. And that scares me, because wasn't there a CAT bus program that was electric? And when that grant went away, the buses stopped. The electric buses stopped right there.
The grant didn't really go away. It was that they wanted to get rid of the service altogether and migrate it over to something else. And the grant was still there. But the problem that you ran into is that the electric buses, it was Proterra, they went bankrupt and they could not get parts for the buses. This is the same situation that the State Department of Education is in on all of these electric buses they bought. Mm-hmm. There's no parts for these buses either. So Seneca High School has a fleet of these electric buses, but they can't use them in the areas because it's so far away. So this is an issue that we're going to run into.
Absolutely.
A question that's got to be answered. How are we going to continue keeping this fleet up and running if there's no parts? But that's what happened with the CAT bus. So instead of going back and trying to buy buses, it was better, or administration said it was better just to go ahead and phase them out and then come up with something new. And then they do have a program with Senior Solutions. Mm-hmm. But again, the CAT bus was probably set up on a wrong thing to begin with. Instead of everybody free ride, it should have been made that they would pay a monthly fee with a card so that people could legitimately use it. At one time, it used to be the brunt of all jokes. Okay, at one time, you could hop on a bus on the Utica Mill Hill, go to Anderson, and bring your drugs back on the CAT bus. And that's how all of that went downhill. There was never any really checks and balances. But as a service, it could have provided a great service. I just think it was completely set up wrong. And again, it was because of free grants. That's the way it was.
I think when we talk about this, there's a poison and everybody gets giddy when they talk about grants
Right.
from the federal government. It's tax dollars being shifted from one bucket to another. Okay. On that note, it's like opium sometimes to small governments, and they get involved in this, and and then all of a sudden we have a situation like the cat bus. Whether or not the end, I assume the start of the cat bus program was because of a grant.
It was. Yeah,
Okay,
it was.
okay.
It came from Clemson, South Carolina. They branched out with that federal grant, and Seneca qualified, and they were able to get the money.
Right.
So, yes.
So instead of taking the time and resources back then for the cat bus, I'm pretty sure I could ask 15 people in the city of Seneca, what does the city of Seneca need more than electric buses back then? And say, you would probably get 5 or 6 quality answers rather than electric buses. I mean, that's just my thought. And if we had done these 5 or 6 things, maybe there would be better situations for the city of Seneca now. And that's what I keep thinking, is because we could have invested in these programs that continue to have a benefit rather than have a situation where you have a fleet of buses you can't use.
You can't use. There was no parts. Matter of fact, the charging stations were so obsolete that there was only one location. The hospital was the only place that you could actually charge these buses. The one in downtown, the charging station quit working 2 years into the whole system. It was not, to me, it was flashy. It was great. Oh, we're going to save the environment. But in reality, if you take a look at the breakdown, you're not saving the environment. You're making the environment worse, because all of the minerals you're having to mine, and then the getting rid of these batteries and stuff. I'm again, electric is a great deal, a good tool if it's solar and certain things. But again, all the batteries in these electric cars, I'd rather call me crazy, but I'd rather have fossil fuels. I'd rather have gas.
Right. So if I went back to when this was being discussed, and I just said, Jeff, would you rather have the electric buses, or would you rather have the money spent to pave the roads in Seneca?
I'd rather have the money to pay the roads in Seneca.
Right now you have paved roads in Seneca, and you wouldn't have a fleet of buses where you're having to spend money to store them or something.
Yeah.
I assume there's some type of money to house them, and there's some type of detention fee associated with that until they become obsolete and you can sell them off and do what you can for parts. But I'm telling you,
You're right. Yeah,
that's where we're faced every day.
Absolutely. You're 100% right.
So I'm looking at it, and I think citizenry, especially here, needs to engage, because for so long we've turned over to politicians who've been there, and elected officials who've been there an extremely amount of time. But now those chickens have come home to roost, and we've got to get re-engaged. So I applaud what you're doing. I applaud what Matt and the council's doing. I applaud what the city of Seneca is doing. We got to have these open dialogues.
Right.
That's important.
All right. If folks wanted to become involved with the Republican Party, I want to touch on this before we wrap up our interview here. How can folks get in touch and become a part of the Republican Party at Oconee?
The easiest way is you can go to our Facebook page, which is the official Oconee County Republican page, and you can see us there, or you can go to OconeeRepublicans.com. Both of those will point you in the direction to find us. We usually have town halls. So on May 14th, we have David Pasco, who's a candidate for Attorney General, and it's usually over at the American Legion in Walhalla, Jeff. 6:30. It's free to the public. We want people to come sit free of charge and hear from those people running for elections or their elected officials. We've got something going on May 30th, but there's some details we're still working out on that. And then we always have our county CXC meetings, usually the third Thursday, once again at the American Walhalla and at the American Legion in Walhalla. So these are ways to connect with us, but you can't throw a rock in Oconee County without hitting somebody who's a Republican. So you can always ask, and they can point us in the right direction.
There is one thing I want to address here on the show, is that there is 2 other groups. Again, this is not an official Republican. They are the Oconee Republican men and the Oconee Republican women. They're a separate group that functions on their own, and they're really not a part of the Oconee Republican Party. Is that correct?
That is correct. They're what we want to call affiliate bodies.
Right.
So they operate outside of this. They usually focus on, like, issues, national and state issues. They really try to stay a little out of the local issues. They're based out of Key, and they have a purpose, and the women are part of the National Federation of Republican Women.
Right.
So they have different sets of issues like this. But when you talk about the Republican Party, we represent about 85% of the Republicans in Oconee County, whereas these two groups represent about 15% of Oconee County. So that gives you an idea of the breakdown. But if you were a parent, if you're in a farmer or something like this, the Oconee County Republican Party is where you're going to get your best representation. Got
you. Any final thoughts, Barry? It's been a great show. Great, just a good, honest conversation here, and I hope we'll get you back in here coming up. I'm thinking right after the primary, then that way we can focus on our attention to talk a little bit about what will be coming up for November. Of course, midterm elections, very, very huge. We've got a national list of candidates. We've got local. Again, the one that I'll be watching most is probably our governor's race. That thing's crazy.
Well, I can. In talks with the campaigns themselves, Jeff, that it's almost every campaign has said that there's going to be a runoff.
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to be a runoff.
Absolutely. I foresee a runoff in that.
Here's the interesting thing about Oconee County. Oconee County is like the tip of the spear on a lot of these political issues. And they were pointing to this early on to say, look, there's going to be two candidates, and they're going to come from two different camps. Mm-hmm. We don't know who those candidates are yet, but we know they're going to come from two different camps. So, ironically enough, this is what I think is so funny. You talk about a leveraged vote, and that is a small number of votes are going to make a big impact. Most people are not going to vote in a runoff after the primary.
That's true.
So you're going to have a small amount of votes in this runoff that is going to decide not just the next 4 years. When it comes to South Carolina politics, your governor is only 8 years. Mm-hmm. So you're picking your governor for 8 years from a small amount of group of people. So I think it's going to be very interesting who shows up on, I think it's June 23rd.
I think it'd be the runoff.
Yeah,
it'd be runoff day, 2 weeks after. Uh-huh. So yeah, that would be the 23rd.
So I think it's going to be very interesting in Oconee County, those runoff numbers that are going to say who's going to really point to who's going to be the governor. But it's not going to be a huge number. So that's interesting. When it comes to general, we can take a little bit of the gloves off because, I'm not held back at that point talking about like endorsements and support. We can talk openly about some of the campaigns and what we want to see and how to do it. So I look forward to that, brother.
Okay, very good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Barry Sanders with the Oconee County Republican Party. It has been a pleasure to have him in here, having an honest conversation here on the Pod Stir. Again, this video, once we're done, is available to share with all your friends. And again, if you have a concern, comment, or a question, all right, we're going to go ahead and cut that interview off there. We want to thank our good friend Barry Sanders for joining us, who is the chairman of the Oconee Republican Party. What a great interview it was, and we will hear from Barry again coming up here in the next few weeks. Again, June the 9th is primary day in South Carolina, not to be confused. I said January 9th, which is actually my birthday, but yeah, June the 9th. Will be the election. That'll be on a Tuesday coming up. One other thought for you here this evening as we continue here on the program before we get ready to wrap it up here at 8:30. The controversy still continues with Oconee County Auditor Christy Hubbard. It is not going away quietly as the Oconee County branch of the NAACP is now speaking out. Of course, if you remember the TikTok video that surfaced showing Hubbard and her husband taking part in a social media trend that included profanity and racial slurs in the audio. The video, of course, back April the 28th was posted, showed her lip singing a song by a King Wilderness. Did you ever get tired? In the clip, Hubbard appeared to turn her head during parts of the audio, but other moments seemed to mouth along with the lyrics, including one line tied to a racial slur. And the Oconee County NAACP sent a letter to the Journal making it clear they believe the matter deserves more than a simple apology. NAACP President George Anderson Jr. wrote that while the original video may have been removed, The damage from posting it cannot be undone or ignored, especially since copies of the videos are still circulating on Facebook. And Anderson has called Hubbard's actions unacceptable, saying they undermine the values of equality and respect the Oconee County should be working to uphold. He also said the incident shows a lack of respect for African-American residents and should not be brushed aside as a joke or explained away with what he called a vague apology. And, of course, the NAACP took issue with chairman and previously noted that Hubbard is an elected official chosen by voters and does not report directly to the county councilor or the county administrator. And I've said that before. She is an elected official. Now, the news is that we're going to have Christy Hubbard on this show hopefully next Monday. And she has agreed to come on the show, and hopefully we will hear from her coming up next Monday. We will find out, and we will see if she comes on the show. Well, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap it up for this Monday. I appreciate you joining us. Coming up next week on Monday's show, we're going to discuss budgeting. Is it possible that one city may be broke? It's possible. I'll have details on that coming up. Also, a story that we are working on that we have got an email from a listener, and we've done some investigative work on this. Is there an issue with one local recreation department and its director? I can't make this up, folks. It looks like that there's something afoul. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the coming weeks as we work more towards those stories and more coming up. And again, remember the conversation I had to begin with here as we started the show. If you knew somebody was on disability, both husband and wife, and they were out buying a $100,000 truck and on GoFundMe begging for a sewing machine repair, what would you think? Hypothetical, of course. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this Monday evening. I hope everybody has a great one. By the way, the show's available at jazzyjeffpotster.com. If you want to watch it now, once we end the show, it's available. Have a great week, and we will see you next Monday at 7 o'clock.
From the back roads and courthouse steps of small-town South Carolina to the late-night studio where the mics never sleep, this is where decisions, rumors, and real stories collide. You're tuned in to the Pot Stirrer Podcast with Jazzy Jeff. Real talk, local issues, no fluff.